This is Cinerama, a film experience from the 50s with a huge curved screen designed to mimic human panoramic vision. It was the largest screen people had ever seen. It truly made them feel like they were inside the movie. It was a futuristic-looking tech that changed movies forever. And yet only 7 films were ever made with this tech. The thing is, Cinerama's story is a paradox, a key invention that vanished not because of a single flaw, but partially because of the very thing that made it so special. To understand why, let's travel through the history of Cinerama. Let's start from the early 50s. A new kind of magic box was appearing in living rooms all over America. It was small, black and white, and totally new. The TV. And Hollywood was not happy about it. People slowly stopped going to the movies because they could simply watch something from the comfort of their homes. Attendance fell from 85 million a week to just 46 million in a couple of years. Hollywood had to give folks a reason to get off their couches. They needed to turn a simple movie night into a show. And that's when Fred Waller entered with his crazy, beautiful ideas. Fred Waller was an American inventor and filmmaker. He wanted to capture everything we can see on film, not just what's in front of us, but almost everything around us. To do that, Waller knew he would need multiple cameras and a huge curved screen. So Waller started a long journey trying to achieve that. First, he created a monster called Vitarama, with 11 cameras and 11 projectors, which Waller eventually cut down to a 3-camera and 3-projector system. This was Cinerama. Here is how it worked. The system used 3 cameras, all working together. They were set as a group, with each one angled at 48 degrees. The middle camera shot straight ahead, while the other 2 captured things to the left and right. Later, the recorded films had to be projected simultaneously from 3 projectors. They were set up just like the cameras and projected the image onto this huge curved screen. We're talking about a screen of almost 23 meters and over 140 degrees. Cinerama was meant to shock. It was a total sensory overload, and for a short time, it looked like Hollywood had found its savior. On September 30th, 1952, Cinerama premiered with the film This is Cinerama. The film began with a familiar sight, a black and white prologue in the standard aspect ratio, but then boom, the image grew wider, filling everyone's peripheral vision. The camera was on a roller coaster, plummeting down. John Heffel wrote for Movie Makers, "I wasn't even on the seat, no sir. I was in the front seat of a diving Coney Island roller coaster, clutching to the handrails in desperation. And the audience, myself included, screamed with excitement." It became clear that Cinerama was no regular movie. This is Cinerama became the second highest grossing film of 1952. So naturally, it was time to make more movies, and even more immersive ones, which led to the creation of travelogues. With Cinerama's unique ability to transport the viewer, travelogues seemed like a perfect fit. And they were, for 10 years. During this decade, almost all Cinerama films were non-fiction travelogues. Movies like Cinerama Holiday, 7 Wonders of the World, and South Seas Adventure really showed off Cinerama's widescreen power to display great places like the Grand Canyon and the Colosseum. It was like taking a trip without ever leaving your seat. But by 1959, the buzz started to fade. Just being there wasn't enough anymore. Viewers wanted more. It was time for Cinerama to change strategy. Cinerama had to evolve. Cinerama Inc. decided to do something new, making feature films. They joined with MGM and made 2 full-length films, hoping to use Cinerama's great immersive experience for dramatic narratives. The first film was The Wonderful World of the Brothers Grimm. It hit theaters in August 1962 and was a fantasy story told through 3 short films. It had some pretty impressive sets and even stop motion. People loved it, both critics and viewers. It ended up being one of the year's top films, even winning an Oscar for Best Costume Design. Just 3 months later, the even more ambitious How the West Was Won was released. This was an epic in every sense, telling the broad story of the American frontier through the eyes of one family over many years. The scale of the production was huge, which made the film a logistical nightmare, needing thousands of extras, hundreds of horses, and a crew that really pushed the Cinerama format to its limit. In fact, it was said that no mass movement in the history of filming on site comes close to the challenges of How West Was Won. Their hard work really paid off. The film received 8 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, and took home 3: Best Story, Best Sound, and Best Film Editing. Cinerama was on top of the world. The money was flowing, the critics were happy, and the prizes were piling up. But that was it. How West Was Won was the last movie ever filmed in Cinerama, and that's because everything behind the scenes was a complete logistical nightmare. Recording in Cinerama was so hard that the difficulties outweighed everything else. All Cinerama's recording difficulties came from the thing that made Cinerama Cinerama: the bulk 3-camera setup. First, the most obvious one, it was heavy. The Cinerama camera weighed over 90 kilograms. Just moving it, especially on site, was a big job in itself. The second problem was the visuals. Since the image was composed of 3 parts, you could often see the seams where they joined. Filmmakers had to get creative, placing trees, posts, or other objects along these lines to hide them. This also meant no close-ups. The 3 cameras simply couldn't get near an actor without distorting the image. The third issue was actor blocking. Because of parallax error, if 2 actors looked directly at each other on set, it would look like they were looking past each other on screen. Actors had to fake their gaze, looking at specific spots instead of at their co-stars. This made natural acting extremely difficult. And finally, the sets. Because the camera had such a wide 143-degree field of view, sets had to be built bigger, higher, and often with 4 walls and a ceiling to keep the camera from seeing an empty space beyond the set. Unfortunately, that's not all. Difficulties followed Cinerama all the way to the theater. First, the seams again. They were a distraction. While shots taken from far away might line up, any close-up would look like the image was split in 2 as it crossed those lines. Although some of these problems were fixed in the newer digital versions you're seeing now, it's hard to imagine lining this up in the theater from 3 projectors. Second, projection was difficult. Not only did they have to align the 3 films, but if one of the 3 strips ever broke, they'd have to cut out the matching frames from all 3 picture strips, plus the separate sound film just to keep them all lined up. And the third factor, of course, was the pricing. Installing Cinerama gear in an old theater was very costly. In 1952, setting it up could cost anywhere from $25,000 to $75,000. Because of that, only a few venues, about 20 in the US and a few more overseas, actually got ready to show true Cinerama. All this made Cinerama inconsistent, a constant struggle, and yet none of these were the nail in the coffin that ended Cinerama. While Cinerama was fighting its own battles, new, easier, and much cheaper techs were emerging, like CinemaScope that used special lenses to squeeze a wide picture onto normal 35mm film, and then another special lens would unsqueeze it for a wide, flat screen. New techs like this were a real shift. They were cheaper to produce and easier to exhibit. All of a sudden, you didn't need 3 separate cameras and lenses to get a widescreen image. You could use the same old gear you had. And so the full true Cinerama idea began to die. By the late 1960s, some really known films like It's a Mad, 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 Mad World and even 2001: A Space Odyssey were sold as Cinerama, but were filmed with new single-strip cameras. The name just became a cool brand, not the actual tech. By the end of the decade, the original Cinerama gear was gone from theaters. The format was just too clunky to keep up with how fast the industry was changing. It was a pain and very costly to produce, a real hard task to screen, and couldn't even be easily adapted for TV. You've been watching all these Cinerama films on a flat screen through this whole video, and it's a bit sad to say this, but it just feels odd. Unfortunately, Cinerama's technical ambition was just too big for its economic viability. But calling Cinerama a flop? That would be a big mistake. It changed movies forever. Cinerama really shook the film world. It started a wave of new widescreen tech in the 50s and basically made Hollywood step up its game with bigger aspect ratios. The whole industry had to get creative because of it. Even though Cinerama didn't stay popular for long, its bold vision and drive for total immersion surely paved the way for how movies are presented to this day. Its real impact isn't just about the tech itself, but about the vision that a movie can be more than just a story. It can be a totally immersive, all-encompassing experience.